Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. So Liverpool are back in Champions League action on Wednesday night with an absolutely massive away game at Napoli. And I mean, if you had to sum up this away game in one word, I think it would be tough, and it's potentially a more difficult way than we will have in any of our other great games in this group stage this season. And I will come on to Napoli later, and I don't necessarily think they are as good as PSG in terms of just how good they are as a team, but I think when you couple how good they are with how incredible the atmosphere can be at that stadium and how tough it can be for away teams to go to, especially on a European night, especially a team coming all the way from England, I think this could end up being a really, really difficult match for Liverpool. But I think the most important thing going into this, and something that does give me a lot of encouragement, is that after that win against PSG, this is not necessarily a free hit, but I think it does take an awful lot of the pressure off, because I think one of the key things in this group is just that we need to win our home games, preferably get that win away or at least a result at Red Star Belgrade, and then whatever happens in the away matches happens, and then hopefully we'll still go through, because 9 points is a really, really good total on its own. You then get either a win or a draw against Red Star away, and you're at least on 10 points, and by and large that's enough to at least secure something close to qualifying for the next round. And obviously our aim should be higher than that. We should be wanting so much more than just scraping into the knockout stages. Realistically, especially after beating PSG, I still think that we should be topping this group. But another important thing is I think Liverpool could get a draw out this game and still be absolutely in pole position to top this group. We'd still be at the top. We'd have that double header against Red Star Belgrade coming up, which should be a bit of a gimme in terms of trying to get 6 points. During that time, PSG and Napoli play each other, so hopefully there's just 2 draws there and they take loads of points off each other, and then Liverpool are set up perfectly to try and go through to that next round in pole position, in first place in the group, to make sure we get a good tie in the round of 16. So to be honest, I would potentially take a draw. I mean, a lot of it is done in the context of this 3-match run that we have, and I think if this game came in isolation and we had Cardiff last weekend and Burnley next weekend, then I'd probably say, yeah, we really should be beating Napoli, because we can rest players at the weekend to make sure that the team is at absolute maximum capacity for this match. But given that we've got the game against Chelsea that we've just been through, and we've got the game against City coming up, I would honestly take a draw, simply because I think it's not the worst result in the world. And if I'm honest, I would have taken draws in all these games, because it still leaves us in pole position to achieve the things we want come the end of the season. So team news going into this game, I think rotation is a little bit of a consideration, not just because of the whole thing about potentially taking a draw, but I do think after that Chelsea game, a lot of the players are going to be tired, and thankfully we do have, I think it's a 5-day rest after the game, or at least a 4-day rest, something like that, because it was on Saturday. But it was a hell of a slog of a match. You know, it was one Liverpool had to be at 100% all the way through, because that was the only way we were ever going to get a result. We had to absolutely give it the beans from minute 1 to minute 90, because it wasn't until the 89th minute that we finally got rewarded for all of our efforts. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jurgen Klopp took a look at his squad and thought, you know what, there are a few players who need to be rested here. And I think one that definitely will be left out is James Milner, because he's played a hell of a lot of football recently. He played, I think, 45 minutes against Southampton, about 65 minutes against Chelsea in the League Cup, and then about maybe 85 against Chelsea in the league. And yeah, at his age, he's waning a little bit, even though he takes care of himself an awful lot. And I just felt, as I said in the post-match video after the Chelsea game in the league, he didn't quite have as much influence as we normally expect from James Milner, and I think he'll be incredibly important in terms of our efforts to dominate the midfield against Man City on Sunday. So I think we should be resting James Milner. The other big question that's come out the weekend, and it's not just about this game but about the general future of Liverpool's season, is what do we do about Mohamed Salah and the potential question over whether we should be dropping him. Because yeah, his goal return hasn't been great, and he has played maybe in certain patches not as well as you'd hope he would. Sometimes he gives the ball away, sometimes he makes the wrong decision going forward. But if you ask me, I think Salah performed very, very well against Chelsea at the weekend. And yeah, he misses a lot of chances, and in that respect you can call it a poor performance. But in terms of his overall play, it was probably one of his better games of the season, because I'll come back to this Michael Owen quote that I may have mentioned on this channel before, but it's something he said recently on BT Sport, that as a striker, if he missed 5 big chances in a game and didn't score a single one, and came into the dressing room afterwards and people saying, oh, terrible game, Michael, he'd actually be like, no, because the most difficult thing is getting into those positions in the first place, and whether or not you score them is almost arbitrary in terms of how you look at your performance and how you look at how you can improve. And obviously Mo Salah will be wanting to improve his finishing, but that's just kind of something that comes with time time. It's something we saw last season as well, where he'd score one big chance and then miss another 3 in a game, and you're thinking, if he can score all of these, he'll be a hell of a player. And then by the end of the season, there are matches where he is scoring 4 goals a game and putting away every single big chance that comes his way. So you almost just have to sit tight and hope / wait for these kind of things to even them out. And at the end of the day, the fact that he's still playing well and getting into those positions is a good sign, because it means at some point he should eventually start putting the ball in the back of the net. And maybe that's this Wednesday, maybe it's against Man City, maybe it isn't until after the international break or even the second half of the season or something like that, when things do really start to heat up. Maybe that's when we'll see the real Mo Salah again. But for now, I don't really have any worries about his form. If he doesn't score for another 10 games, then it becomes a little bit of a problem, because you're starting to think that maybe it's getting into his head a little bit. But if you ask me, Mo Salah is absolutely fine at the moment, and not necessarily undroppable, because no player is, but certainly not performing badly by any means of the imagination. So the starting 11 that I'm expecting us to put out for this game, obviously it's Alisson in goal. No arguments there. This is a team that he's come up against before, so hopefully he can put in the kind of big performances that he must have put in against them in Serie A to earn that move to Liverpool. Hopefully he knows what all those players are going to be trying to do, and he could pull off some wonder saves that will help us get the result, like he did at the weekend against Chelsea. Then the back two, got to be Joe Gomez and Virgil van Dijk. Virgil van Dijk hopefully fully recovered after those rib problems. He managed to get through the game against Chelsea. Didn't really look like it was affecting his performance too much, which was certainly a positive sign. It also didn't look like Chelsea target him too much, because there's always the worry that when a player does just come back from an injury and they're a bit touch and go for a game, opposition players will target them. And you think, I wouldn't even begrudge a Chelsea player for digging an elbow into his ribs during that game, because, you know, if a Chelsea defender had the problem, we would have been hoping that our attackers would do the exact same, just to get any sort of advantage in the game. So hopefully Virgil van Dijk's absolutely fine. We haven't heard any word to the contrary. And then I think Joe Gomez has been absolutely fantastic this season, and this will be a massive game for him as well. There's a hell of a lot of pressure on him here, away from home as well, in an incredibly hostile environment. For a lad of that age coming up against some pretty good attacking players, this will be a massive test for Joe Gomez, and hopefully yet another one that he passes with flying colours. And then the right back, Trent Alexander-Arnold. It's got to be, I think, if you were to put Klein in any of the 3 games that we're playing in this little 3-game mega run that we're going through this week, it would probably be this one, just because, you know, away from home, you're thinking, especially in Europe, we can maybe forsake a little bit of that attacking ability down that right-hand side and think we'll just have someone who's a little bit more secure, and also give Trent Alexander-Arnold a bit of a rest. But with Trent especially, he's not going to do that much playing in the international break. He might get 1 game in a friendly or something like that, but it's not going to be the most intense period of his football career. So I think you can play him here and against Man City, and it's not really a huge problem. I think potentially same with Andrew Robertson. There's a little bit of a worry that he might get burnout against Scotland, because obviously he's their captain now. He's probably going to play both of their games, and they're going to try and use him to maximum effect, so he might get worn out there. But I think there are certainly games after the international break as well where we can maybe start to consider resting Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold a little bit regularly, and making sure we don't burn them out too early on in the season. And then the midfield, this is where I'm expecting changes. I think you go with Henderson in the number 6. People said he didn't have a great game against Chelsea, but I thought he was just all right. You know, I think he started well, had some good touches, let the game get away from him at certain times, but by no means an awful performance from him, I think it's fair to say. And then I think Gini Van Alden plays further ahead of him. He had a fantastic game against Chelsea. I thought he was so good in terms of winning the ball back, driving it forward, you know, using his physicality to his strengths, using his technical ability on the ball to his strengths, and hopefully we see another performance like that at the San Paolo Stadium, I think it is, Napoli play out. And then I think the big change we'll see is Naby Keita coming into midfield for James Milner. He had a decent cameo in the game against Chelsea, you know, didn't really have that much time to do stuff, but whenever he got the ball, it felt like he was going to make something happen. And we had a similar thing in the League Cup game as well. He's clearly an incredibly talented player, and hopefully this is a match where he can show those kind of skills on the biggest stage possible. And yeah, I just think playing Milner would be ridiculous in this game, because the poor man needs a rest. And then there are shouts for Fabinho, but I think this is we saw what in the game against Chelsea in the League Cup, that Fabinho, great footballer, just not quite ready. And yeah, if this was Red Star at home, absolutely put Fabinho in, give those other midfielders a rest, give him a little bit of a chance to shine and show what he's made of in what would probably be his biggest opportunity so far this season. But Napoli away from home, I think you'd have have to be a little bit mad to throw Firmino in this early, and I think he is one of those players that we'll see a lot more of after the international break. So I think Henderson, Keita and Gini has to be the midfield, and then Salah, Firmino and Mane for the front three. And yeah, you can consider Daniel Sturridge for there. He is always a possibility, especially the form he's in. I think someone said to me today it's like 4 goals in 178 minutes so far this season. And yeah, some of those are sub appearances, but you still got to score the goals in the short amount of time you've had on the pitch. And obviously a lot of them have been really, really good goals as well. So I think there's definitely a shout for Daniel Sturridge, especially when the fixture list is packed this tightly. And I think that is probably the front three that will play against Man City. Certainly Firmino up front, because I think he just suits playing against them so well. His pressing ability, his ability to read where the passes are going to go and cut them out and create chances for Liverpool. So maybe this game does suit Daniel Sturridge a little bit better than that one, and maybe there's a shout to throw him in after his heroics and after how well he has performed so far this season. But I do just think, I'd rather have Salah, Firmino and Mane, because I think as a unit, they still gel so much better. And I think if we're going to play Salah and we want to get the best out of him, it's probably best to play Firmino and Mane alongside him as well. So taking a look at Napoli then, in terms of the results they've had so far this season, it has been a little bit of a mixed bag. Certainly when you compare it to last season, I think that's a positive sign, because when we got Napoli in the group, we were thinking about how well they did last season, how they got something like 92 points and pushed Juventus closer than probably anyone has for about a decade, or certainly at least since Juventus last didn't win the Serie A title. And obviously they played such fantastic attacking football under Maurizio Sarri last season that we got certainly a big taste of in the game against Chelsea in the league at the weekend. So it's certainly a positive sign for Liverpool that they are not the same beast that they were last year, because that was something that was concerning a lot of people when the draw for the group stage was announced. Their results in general, I mean, the only one they've had in Europe was a 0-0 away to Red Star Belgrade, which on the surface doesn't look great, but I think until we've seen Liverpool play away to Red Star, it'll be hard to really judge how difficult that away game is, because it is it's probably even a worse atmosphere than playing away to Napoli. It's probably even more hostile. Obviously, you'd expect that Napoli are the better team, but we've seen from Liverpool just how much atmosphere can affect teams, even the best teams in Europe, in the land. So, I certainly wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool had a really difficult game against Red Star and got a draw there as well. So maybe that is a terrible result for Napoli. Maybe they're looking at that and thinking, you know what, that's actually not that bad, especially given that it was their first game in the group as well. And at the end of the day, they didn't concede. In terms of domestic results, they've dished out a few wallopings, but they have received some as well. I think they got like a 3-0 loss to Sampdoria earlier on in the season. They lost 3-1 and had a man sent off against Juve at the weekend. And it was interesting to see that Ancelotti did come out firing in the press after that game and did seem to not throw his players under the bus, but certainly demand more of them and say what you're doing right now isn't acceptable. So I think that's something that Liverpool have to be wary of, especially in the first 15 minutes. If Napoli come out and feel like they've got a point to prove, and especially in front of their home crowd, which will be bang up for this game. It's their first home game of the season, and it's against a massive side that were the Champions League finalists last season. I think we will probably have a little bit of a storm to weather in those first 15 or 20 minutes or something like that. The kind of storms that teams have had to deal with from us in the past at Anfield. So maybe that's where those shouts for potentially having Klein at right back just to steady things a little bit, or Fabinho in midfield to steady things a little bit in those early stages of the game come in. But I think Liverpool have got that quality in defence that even attacking fullbacks like Robertson and like Trent Alexander-Arnold, they've shown how good they are defensively. I think they can deal with anything Napoli throw at them. And even if Napoli stay on top for the full 90 minutes and they have all the ball and they create all the chances, I'd still back us to actually win the game and get the 3 points, because I think our defence is strong enough to deal with that kind of pressure in this kind of game. And obviously we haven't seen it maybe tested to this degree yet, but they've passed every test so far with flying colours, and just hopefully this is yet another one that they do spectacularly well in. And then obviously our attack is so good. Not quite firing at the moment, but I feel like this might be the game where we finally start to see them click a little bit, where they finally start to put away more and more chances and bury the game earlier on. So, I would still back us to win this. I think Napoli just aren't quite as great as they were under Sarri, and obviously we've already got a little bit of a psychological edge as well, because we did beat them 5-0 in pre-season, and yeah, it was only pre-season, yeah, it was in Dublin, so it was mainly a home crowd, yeah, they were a week behind us in terms of when teams had started their pre-season preparation and stuff like that, but 5-0 still gets it in their heads. They're going to see those Liverpool players walk out and think, oh geez, not these lads again. I mean, the guys tried to, sue UEFA for being drawn in the same group group as Liverpool. So if you're scared of Napoli, don't worry. They're like spiders. They are more scared of us. So I would back Liverpool to win this game, no matter how the game goes this weekend. I'd say I'd go for a 2-0 win. I think Salah and Firmino to score the goals, Alisson and Co to keep a clean sheet, and Liverpool to be top of their Champions League group. So that is all for today's video. But before you go, just a little bit of housekeeping. I am thinking of slightly changing the post-match video format, because with the new setup at uni, it takes quite a while to get videos out. So I'm thinking of maybe changing it to having like a 5-minute instant match reaction video, which sort of sums the game up, tells the basic story of the match, tells you guys how I feel and stuff like that. It's a smaller one for you guys who maybe don't like the long, lengthy, in-depth tactical analysis videos that normally come out that are about 15 minutes long. So that would come out very soon after the game, you know, hopefully no more than half an hour or something like that. And it'll probably be done not live, but pretty much as live from whatever pub or ground that I'm watching the game at and stuff like that. And then later on, there'd be a player ratings and more in-depth analysis show later on, in whether it's the evening or afternoon, or potentially, if I have to, the day after the game. But yeah, let me know if you guys think that would be better than the current format, whether you'd rather stay with what I'm doing now, where it's like a 15-minute video that ends up coming about an hour after the match. And let me know if you have any other ideas of how I could go about it. I mean, just tell me what you want to see from this channel and I will try and make it happen. Apart from that, thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days as well. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter, and I'll be back on Wednesday evening after we've hopefully thrashed Napoli. Until then, bye for now.